Hey there to all the three people watching this. Welcome back. I'm Moreno Zeno, and this will be my longest video I think I've ever made. It's only been clips before, so if you've been here since the very beginning of my random Phantom Forces clips, I appreciate you staying along. And I'm going to be making more like long form content like this in the future. So today we're going to be diving into a discussion that's been on my mind for a while, Battlefield 5. As a fan of the franchise, and as a fan of history personally, I couldn't help but feel disappointed with certain aspects of this game. Okay? Now, before we get into all the negative stuff, let's talk about the good stuff first. So, the firing range is one of the best I've seen in any game ever. It is very immersive and allows you to mess around with, quite literally, every piece of equipment you find in your battles across Europe and the Pacific. From random tanks to airplanes to any weapon a soldier can hold. It's quite immersive. So I find that the weapons are also quite balanced, if a bit bland. I'm coming from being a Battlefield 1 veteran, personally, and some of the weapons in that are incredibly unfun to play against. However, there's nothing really like that in Battlefield 5, except the rare power weapons like flamethrowers and katanas. The only issue I have with the weapons in Battlefield 5 is they do seem a bit bland. Some of them are taken from Battlefield 1, which does make sense. But even some of the meme guns. For instance, in Battlefield 5, you have the meme gun, the Liberator, which is like this really bad pistol that, like, you can't do anything with it, and it only shoots one bullet, and then it takes like 30 minutes to reload. Whereas in Battlefield 1, you have the Calibri, which is this like tiny little pistol that people love to use because it's such a goofy little gun. But anyway, let's talk about historical inaccuracy or accuracy. Okay, World War II was a monumental event in history, and I believe that a game set in that era should strive to capture its essence. Battlefield 5, however, takes some liberties that detract from that authenticity. I'm not going to talk about the weapons, of course, because you gotta make do with what you have. But they, even though they do seem to be in poor taste, but a big part of it is the outfits. From what I've seen, the British outfit is actually just a random mess of American equipment, British equipment. They even have a Chinese gas mask for some reason. And it's clear that this game sacrifices historical accuracy for sake of variety, which, is fine. In previous titles like Battlefield 1, they did the same thing. But I think the most glaring part is that they don't refer to Germans as Nazis anywhere. They're just another, faction. They're not an evil. They're not a villain. They're just another faction you can play as or play against, and that makes sense in regular gameplay. You're playing faction on faction, but in the campaign, I think it should be set more clear that they're the villains. Okay. Hitler is never referenced in any part of the campaign or story or anywhere, and a swastika is never seen. It's potentially some sort of erasing history or rewriting it in some way. And some of the German medals that German soldiers can be found wearing throughout the game are actually Austro-Hungarian, which is a bit weird considering Austro-Hungary during World War II had collapsed and split off into a bunch of other countries. So that's another issue I have a problem with. Another part of the campaign we play is Tiralur, I think. It's my pronunciation is garbage, which is a colonial soldier. The game plays this part as basically that all the colonial soldiers had been erased from history to be replaced with white soldiers, so that the countries that were employing them, like France and Britain, seemed like more efficient or effective with just their white soldiers. When in actual reality, Tiroleurs despised the country that had colonized them and would have not have been as patriotic as shown in the campaign. And in the Norway campaign, they're also historically inaccurate, as they're in the campaign. It's like this woman and a girl who are stopping the heavy water production, and not what actually happened was Norway resistance and British commandos. Now, let's talk about player customization, a controversial subject in the past. While I appreciate the desire to give players creative freedom, the level and customization in Battlefield 5 often crosses the line. Weapon skins are fine. Battlefield 1 has had them. Every game nowadays has them. But having red dot sights, well, not really red dot sights, but holographic sights, in a World War II game is in very poor taste, as they were not used until the 1970s to the 1990s. And especially not on such a large scale that every single soldier's got a red dot on their M1 Garand. I do enjoy the other parts of the weapon customization, being able to customize your skins differently. I feel like Battlefield 1 did not capture that well. You just have like one skin, you could put on like a sight and like a bayonet, and that's all you could do in one. However, Battlefield 1 also had like the different variants of guns. You could have like a trench variant, a factory variant, stuff like that, which is not present. And I think the class system is also good. I feel like it doesn't drastically change things. It just makes your class slightly better in one way or shape or form. However, I do think player skins have gone way too far. Being able to be a Japanese woman fighting British soldiers in North Africa has gone a tad bit over the line, I think. And it goes for most of the elite skins. I say most, there are some that I'm personally fine with, but like the 80-something-year-old Luftwaffe pilot, which is my personal favorite, just like running around with like a M1 Garand and a like American revolver, is one of the most cursed things I think I've ever seen in a single Battlefield game. I'm also going to bring up women slightly. This is also a very controversial part of Battlefield 5. But the only women who fought in World War II were in espionage and resistance movements, which, if they included some resistance game modes, that would have been perfectly fine. But outside of that, there's no like female soldiers and stuff like that. So I'm gonna leave it at that. But that's kind of not historically accurate. And so finally, okay, we're getting to the end of this tangent. One of my bigger gripes with Battlefield 5 is what seems to be a lack of care of how much potential it has. Okay, it's a World War II game, for crying out loud. You can do so much with it, but I feel like it's held back from being a full World War II game. Okay, you could have naval battles in the Pacific, air battles above Western Europe, French and Polish resistance game modes where you're outnumbered and have to strike effectively. DICE has already done this before with their Ewok game mode in Star Wars Battlefront 2. I know it doesn't quite match up, but it can be done similarly. You can do it, just like change some stuff up. Chinese and Indian soldiers fighting the Japanese. And how can you tell me this is a World War II game without a D-Day map? Okay? D-Day maps are like the treasure chest behind the waterfall. You don't realize, you're always like, oh, I wonder if there's a treasure chest behind the waterfall, and then you complain about it when you have it, because like, oh, that's so simple. But if you don't have it, you complain about it because, oh, why isn't it not behind there? It doesn't make too much sense, but how can you make a World War II game without the Soviet Union? I'm just asking, like, how did you manage that? They had a ton of the most losses per any country who fought in the war. Like the entire male population between 18 and like 40 were just gone after World War II. You're telling me you didn't feel like putting them in that game because reasons. And same with Italy. Less so with Italy because they didn't do much, but still, Italians fought in World War II, albeit on the Axis. But you should include Italy in the war. You could have better like North Africa campaigns. You could have like an Italian campaign, like American troops marching up the boot. Like I feel like it's just wasted potential. What about France before they surrendered? You tell me that France is not in your World War II game. It's just you can play on France, and most of the maps are taken or done in 1939 to the 1940 region, but you don't have France, who is still an active participant in the war, then not included as a faction. That just seems stupid to me personally, and I feel like this is a poor stain on the Battlefield franchise. So, in the end, these are nitpicky things, and it's just all my opinion. Once again, if you put a ton of hours into Battlefield 5, I respect that. You're probably way better at the game than me. And I personally find the game pretty fun, albeit a bit challenging at times. From my gameplay perspective, I think it's done some parts of the gameplay loop very well. And I've had pretty good times with friends across the world of the Battlefield 5 game. And anyway, that is all. Thank you. Thank you for watching this as I scream at a 5-year-old game that is not getting any more updates. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Cheers.